Coward. She doesn't make it to tomorrow's signing aboard that yacht. Father, she's the minister's daughter. If anything happens to her, the entire country will come after us. Not if they cannot find her. Coward. No wonder your dead brother was always the better son. He understood what loyalty costs. You only understand fear. After tonight, she's never seen again. She trusts you. Get her away from the security detail. The sea will take care of the rest. I'll handle everything else. Yes, Father.
The night I overheard my own death being planned, I wasn't hiding from strangers. I was hiding from my husband and the man he called father. I thought I had married into a powerful family just like mine. I thought I married a man who would love and protect me. I didn't know I had become their next business transaction. That was the night love died, and survival became my only choice. People think the worst part was the words. It wasn't. It was the pause. 2 seconds, maybe 3. That's how long my husband stood there deciding whether I was worth more to him breathing. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He calculated. And then he opened his mouth and said, "Yes, Father," in the same voice that tells me good morning. Everyone assumes I felt fear first. I didn't. Fear came later, and fear came hard enough to put me on my knees. First was the arithmetic, standing barefoot in the dark, in a house with my name on the deed, running the numbers. Every dinner, every anniversary, every night he learned how I take my coffee. All of it was work. All of it was billable. I wasn't a wife. I was an acquisition, and acquisitions get written off. Then the floor creaked under my heel, and everything in me that was grieving went quiet, because that one sound changed the question. It stopped being, "Did he ever love me?" It became, "Do I live to see the morning?" My father is one of the most powerful men in the United States government. I had 6 men on my security detail, a driver, a house with cameras on every door, and standing in that hallway, none of it was worth $1, because every person paid to keep me safe was paid by the man who wanted me gone. 3 questions were born on that staircase. Why would a family my marriage had just saved decide I had to be dead before sunrise? What happened to the older brother, the son that man actually loved? And what did burying him turn him into? And how does a woman get out of a house where her security is on her enemy's payroll, her phone is on her enemy's account, and the man sleeping next to her has already said yes? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because every guest on that yacht believed they were watching the proudest morning of a young woman's life. Not one of them knew I'd already been sentenced. A beat. And not one of them knew what I'd spent the last 36 hours building. None of this looked like danger. That's the part she still can't get past. A beat. It looked like the best 2 years of her life. 2 years earlier, Adaline Marsh wasn't looking for a husband. She was looking for a signature. "They're going to say your father closed this for you." That was the first sentence Grant Ellison ever spoke to her. They already do. Loudly, in rooms I'm standing in. They're wrong. Nobody who's read it says that. He turned his glass on the table. There are 4 provisions in your framework that only survive because somebody understood how the currency exposure moves in year 7. Your father doesn't know that exists. You wrote it at 2 in the morning and you were angry when you wrote it. It reads like a woman who'd just been interrupted. Who are you? Grant Ellison. Your family's in the papers. My family is always in the papers. That's not the same as being good at anything. This one sees me. That's what she thought. But there was one night, early, before the ring, before the house, and she has gone back to it every day since. He stepped into the hallway to take a call. She wasn't listening. She heard 4 words anyway. "Yes, it's working." Who was that? My father. What's working? He came back in and kissed the top of her head and said, "The thing I've been trying to fix." That's not an answer, Grant. It's the only one I've got tonight. You know that's how people start lying, right? One sentence at a time, and they think it's charming. He laughed. She let it go. 2 words. She holds up 2 fingers. It's working. I let it go. Because I was happy. And happy people are lazy. Her voice doesn't move. 2 years later, I found out exactly what was working. And it was me. The first night she had dinner at that house, Walton Ellison corrected his son's posture with 2 fingers tapped on the back of a chair. Grant sat up like he'd been struck. He never raised his voice, not once, the whole time she knew him. The loudest thing in any room he entered was the silence he brought with him. There was an empty chair at that table. Nobody sat in it. Nobody explained it. The 3rd time, she asked. That was Beckett's chair. My eldest. He was killed 4 years ago, unhurried. He was the one this was all being built for. I'm so sorry. Don't waste it on me. He picked the fork back up. Be sorry for what's left of this family. I buried the son who could carry it.
I'm so
and I
sorry.
kept the one who can describe it. Nobody moved. Grant. What he said at dinner. He meant it. Beckett could walk into a room and the room moved. His hands were tight on the wheel. I walk into a room and it asks me to leave a message. That's not funny. It's not a joke, Addie. Beckett Ellison was violent. He hurt people for the family's business. He was very good at it, and his father loved him for it. In a way, he never once loved the son who read contracts. Beckett died 4 years earlier. A parking structure. Rain. Walton never grieved him, she says. He did something worse. He took the shape of the son he lost, and he pressed it down over the son he kept. Every single day. Your brother would have closed this Thursday. Your brother never asked permission. Your brother didn't flinch. Your brother was a son. Grant heard that every week of his adult life. And instead of running from it, she stops. He started trying to earn it. She didn't know it yet, but she had just watched the exact machine that would decide her death. A father who spent people, and a son who had already learned to let him. And that is when the marriage happened. Because Ellison Holdings wasn't struggling. It was dying. I'll run it 100th time, it comes out the same. Nell Kavanaugh, 19 years the company's chief financial officer, closed the folder. Debt service eats everything we make by March. We are not a company, Walton. We're an expensive method of losing money in a very handsome building. Then find me a bridge. There is no bridge. There's a bank. And the bank has stopped taking your calls, which you know because you've been calling from my phone. She leaned back. Money isn't your problem. Everyone with money has stopped believing you. You need a name so clean nobody's willing to look underneath it. Nell has testified that she watched him turn his head, the way a man does when an idea walks in and sits down. My son, Walton said, is unmarried. Walton, get me everything on the Marsh girl. She's 30. She's a person. She's an asset with a person attached. He buttoned his coat. Everything has both, Nell. The trick is knowing which half you're buying. 4 months later, a man sat down beside the secretary's daughter and told her that her father had nothing to do with her brilliance. He was right about that, she says. It was the only true thing he said all night. The marriage worked exactly as designed. Doors reopened, investors came back. 3 papers ran the wedding photographs, and every caption said the same thing, the Ellison family. Not one of them asked what a family like that actually costs to join. I thought I was a bride, she almost laughs. I was a transfusion, and it should have ended there. That's what keeps me awake. If that man had only wanted to survive, I'd still be married. But some men can't stop at survival. And on a Sunday afternoon in her 2nd year in that house, Walton walked past the sunroom and heard 4 words. 500 billion? Confirmed. He didn't stop walking. He didn't turn his head. His face didn't change. She says, That's what nobody understands. He heard the number that was going to get me killed, and his face didn't change. 3 days later, Walton sat across from his counsel. Walk me through the marital position. If something happened to her. Happened how? She travels constantly. There's a boat next month. Humor me. If Adaline predeceases Grant, no children, no separate instrument, her estate passes to her surviving spouse, her holdings, her equity, her position in the Meridian vehicle. Say the number. Walton, say it out loud. I want to hear how it sounds in a room. $500 billion in contract control. Grant would hold all of it. Walton looked out the window. That will be all. Be clear about what happened in that room. He was told, in plain English, that if his son's wife died, $500 billion would land in his hands, and he sat with it. He turned it over, and he decided to have me killed for it. He wasn't frightened. He wasn't cornered. Nobody forced his hand. A pause. He decided it the way other men decide to refinance. That night he called Royce Denham, who had run Ellison security for 11 years and had done things for Beckett that never made a police report. On the water, Denham said. Why not tonight, though? Denham asked. It would be simpler. Tonight she's under my roof, surrounded by staff who'd remember every hour of it. On the one night her husband happens to be behaving strangely. Tonight makes a story. Tomorrow makes an accident, Walton said. His voice never rose. It never once rose. A woman doesn't fall off dry land, Royce. She falls off a boat in front of 400 witnesses who will all swear they were looking at the stage. During the address then, 400 people would be on the upper deck, drinking and looking at each other. The stern would be empty, no camera below the second landing. She goes over the rail. By the time anyone thinks to count heads, she's been in the current 9 minutes. And it reads as, a tragedy. A young woman leaned too far out to look at the water on the proudest day of her life. A beat. They'll weep for her on the news, Royce. I'll weep for her on the news. And the body won't be found. That is the entire virtue of the ocean. Denham has described that call to federal investigators. He describes it the same way every time. He wasn't nervous. He was bored. There's a problem. Grant. Grant isn't a problem. Grant is a tool. Walton turned a page. You simply have to hold him at the correct angle. 2 nights before the ceremony, she came home and found him sitting on the edge of the bed in the dark, still in his coat. You've been sitting here in the dark like a Victorian ghost. What's wrong? Nothing. Grant, I'm tired. She put her head on his shoulder and felt him flinch. Talk to me. You've been strange all week. Is it your father? It's always my father.
Is it your father?
Then let's leave.
If I did something
She meant it
unforgivable,
entirely.
would you want to
After
know
the
why?
signing, we take the money, we buy something hideous in Vermont with a terrible kitchen, and we never come back to this house. You don't understand what he is. I understand exactly what he is. He's a man who thinks affection is a payroll expense. She lifted her head. And you keep working for him for free. He laughed. It came out wrong. Addie, can I ask you something insane? Always. If I did something, he stopped. If I did something unforgivable, would you want to know why? Or would you just want it to have never happened? She laughed at him. That's what she did. She pushed his shoulder. What did you do? Forget our anniversary again? And Grant Ellison, who genuinely loved her, and he did, and that's what makes this unbearable, said, yeah, something like that. I told myself he was just afraid of his father. Her jaw sets. I had no idea how little time was left. The last conversation before the study happened in a parking structure. 90 seconds. You're going to tell me you can't. I'm going to tell you there has to be another way. There is no other way. There is only the way you're too small to walk. Walton didn't look at him. Do you know what your brother did at 24? He handled something for me. He never asked what it was for. He never asked whether it was fair. He put it down, he drove home, he ate at my table, and he slept 8 hours without moving. He finally turned his head. Your brother buried men who inconvenienced him. You can't even bury a feeling. She's my wife. She's a signature. She was always a signature. You confuse the paper with the person because you're soft, and soft men fall in love with the furniture. You made me marry her. Yes, you made me tell her I loved her, and you performed it so convincingly you began to believe it yourself. That is the single most impressive thing you have ever done. He let it sit. Look at yourself, 38 years old, weeping in a parked car over a woman who was never yours to keep. You are a coward, Grant. You are pathetic, you are weak, and you have never understood the first thing about power. Don't. Power is not what you hold. Power is what you're willing to spend. He opened the door. Your brother understood that at 19. You'll die not understanding it. The only reason you occupy a place in my life is that the better one is in the ground. Then he leaned back into the open door and said the sentence Grant would repeat, weeping, in a courtroom 14 months later. Do this, and you come home, and you eat at my table, and for the first time in your life, you will be my son. That night it rained. I came upstairs to ask him what he wanted for breakfast, she says. That's it. That's the whole reason I was standing there. Crack. Walton Ellison turned toward the door. A sane person runs. That's what everyone tells me. Why didn't you run? Because running is a confession. She doesn't blink. Run, and you're a woman who heard something. Sit down, and you're a woman who was never there. So I sat down, and when the study door opened and Walton found his daughter-in-law sitting on the staircase at midnight, she looked up and said, Is there any of that appalling chamomile left, or has Grant hidden it again? He didn't move. He was reading her, every muscle in her face. Couldn't sleep? $500 billion is a lot of arithmetic to do with your eyes closed. It's in the pantry. Thank God. Grant hides a great many things. Grant hides snacks, Walton. Let's not build a mythology. And she laughed. She laughed. And he almost smiled and went down the stairs. She sat there until his door closed 2 floors below. Then she pressed her forehead into the banister and shook so hard the wood rattled. And then I went to bed, beside him. Her voice is very flat. He put his arm around my waist, exactly the way he had every night for 2 years. And I let him. If I scream, I die tonight. If I smile, I live until morning. A breath. So I smiled. She didn't sleep. She watched the ceiling go black to gray. And somewhere near 4 in the morning, the grief burned all the way down, and something else stood up in the ashes. Breakfast was a performance so complete that 3 witnesses have testified to it separately. You're up early, Grant said. She could hear the tape holding his voice together. Big day tomorrow. She poured his coffee before her own. Nervous? For you? Always. Don't be. I intend to be magnificent. She kissed the top of his head and felt him shudder, and thought, with a calm that frightened her, good. Walton came in. That tie is a war crime. Nell Kavanaugh, in the corner with a document review and no sleep, choked on her coffee. It's Italian. It's criminal, Walton. Italy would disown it. Italy would issue a statement. You are the only person in this house who speaks to me that way. Somebody has to. You're surrounded by people who agree with you. That's how men your age end up in terrible ties and worse decisions. He looked at her a moment too long. Yes, he said. I suppose somebody does. And I smiled at him, she says, and I thought it in the front of my mind, where I could see it. I am going to take everything from you. Everyone asks why I didn't just pick up a phone. Police? I had nothing. I had a hallway and a barefoot and a story. My only witness was the man who agreed to kill me. My father? My phone was on the Ellison family account. Every number I dialed printed onto a statement that crossed Walton's desk on the 1st of the month. The house line went through the estate office. The estate office reported to Denham. Denham reported to Walton. 6 men on my detail, my driver, the woman who cleaned my bedroom. A breath. I was the most protected woman in the state of Connecticut, and every single layer of that protection belonged to the man who wanted me dead. So I stopped trying to call for help. Her eyes come up, and I went to work. At 10:40, while Grant dressed for the day, she photographed his desk. My hands shook so badly the first 11 pictures came out useless. She found the real debt filings and a memo from Walton's attorney. Spousal succession, meridian position. She says it flatly. That's what they called me, in a subject line. Then a shadow crossed the doorway. Mrs. Ellison, Royce Denham. Her whole body went to ice, and her hands picked up the framed wedding photograph on the desk and turned it toward the light. Royce, be honest with me. She tilted her head at it. Do I look drunk in this? He looked at the picture, then at her. You look happy. That's what I was afraid of. She set it down. She smiled. She walked past him close enough to touch him, and she didn't hurry, and she didn't look back. I made it to the landing before my legs went out from under me. She had proof they wanted her money. She had nothing that proved they wanted her dead. And the boat sailed in 22 hours. She didn't call the police. She called the one person Walton had already taught to expect nothing. Nell Kavanaugh took it standing between 2 cars in a parking garage because Adaline had asked her to go somewhere with concrete over her head. This is dramatic. Nell, listen and don't say anything until I'm finished. She told her all of it. Her voice broke twice, and she kept going. Nell? I'm here. I'm just doing something I haven't done in 19 years. A breath. I'm being surprised. Do you believe me? Sweetheart, I've been shredding that man's paper since you were in middle school. I don't just believe you. I could have told you. Then help me. You understand what you're asking. If this doesn't land, he doesn't fire me. He finishes me. I know. And I'm not a good person. I signed things. I moved things. I looked at a set of books in 2019 that should have put 4 men in prison, and I made them beautiful. Nell, what? I'm not asking you to be a good person. And Adaline heard her own voice go somewhere it had never been. I'm asking you to be a witness. The storage annex. Bring nothing. Touch nothing on the way. Nell's voice dropped. And Adaline, do not use your phone again. Not once. Not for the weather. The annex smelled like dust and toner. Nell set a cardboard box on the table and lit a cigarette she wasn't allowed to smoke in that building. Before I give you this, you need to know what you're actually fighting. Because you think you're fighting a greedy man. She exhaled. You're not. Then what am I fighting? A man who has already done this once. Nell, what are you telling me? Beckett. She tapped the cigarette. Everyone tells the same story. Beckett was the golden one. Beckett died in a shootout. Walton never recovered. Her mouth tightened. It's a beautiful story. It's carried this house for 4 years. It's also a lie. He didn't die? Oh, he died. Thoroughly. She looked up. He died because his father sent him. What? 2021. There was a partner who was going to walk into a federal building and explain how this company actually made its money. He'd have taken Walton down to the studs, and Walton told Beckett to handle it. Nell stubbed the cigarette out on the table. So Beckett, who never asked a question in his life, drove to a parking structure at 11 o'clock at night in the rain. Except the partner knew he was coming. And the partner brought people. God. Beckett Ellison bled out on level 3 because his father pointed him at a door and never once checked what was behind it. Does Grant know? Grant thinks his brother died a hero. He spent 4 years failing to become him. Nell pushed the box across the table. Walton lets him believe it every single day, because a son chasing a ghost will do anything you ask him. A beat. And a son who knows the truth runs. Adaline's hands were flat on that table. They were not shaking anymore. He spent him, and now he's spending you. Nell stood. Take the box. Grant broke that afternoon in his father's office in front of Nell Kavanaugh, who has testified to every word. I can't.
Father,
He was
I can't
weeping
do it
openly.
because you leak.
Father, I can't do it. I've tried to make myself and I can't. Sit down. She poured my coffee this morning. Sit down. He sat. Walton crouched to his son's eye level, the way you would with a child. Do you want to know why I have never been able to love you? Father, because you leak. He said it gently. That's the part everyone remembers. He said it gently. Everything that happens inside you comes straight back out of your face. Your brother never cried. Not as a child, not with a broken arm, not at his own mother's funeral. I stood over that boy's coffin, and I didn't cry either. Do you know why? Please, because grief is a bill that weak men pay, and strong men refuse to be sent. She loves me. She loves a character you played for 2 years. You were never the man she married. You were a costume I put you in. His hand settled on the back of Grant's neck. Almost tender, almost fatherly. You want me to tell you you're a good man. You are not a good man. You are a soft one. And the world does not lose 1 minute of sleep over soft men. It steps on them and keeps walking and does not look down. Father, please. Tomorrow you take your wife below deck, softer still. And tomorrow night you come home and you sit at my table and you eat, and I will look at you. For the first time in your life, I will look at you. And Grant Ellison, 38 years old, sobbing, said the 4 words that ended him. Yes, yes, Father. Walton was not stupid. That's the mistake people make about men like him, and it's the mistake that gets people killed. He felt it. Something in that house had changed temperature. He found her in the garden that evening. You're calm. I'm terrified. I'm signing $500 billion tomorrow in front of the entire world. Are you? He studied her. You haven't slept. I haven't slept in 3 days, Walton. I'm running on coffee and spite. Grant's been strange. Grant's been strange since the night I met him. It's the only reason I married him. And then he asked it.
Did you come upstairs
casually,
Tuesday night?
the way
Yes,
you'd ask
and I
about the
stubbed my
weather.
toe on that
Did you come
appalling
upstairs
floorboard.
Tuesday night? I did the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, she says. I got annoyed. Yes, and I stubbed my toe on that appalling floorboard, and I want it fixed, Walton. I've asked twice. She yanked her gloves off. $9 million of house, and I'm limping around it like a dock worker. A long beat. Walton Ellison laughed. 2 syllables. Dry as paper. I'll have it seen to. I stood in that garden 4 minutes before my hands would work again. At 11 o'clock that night, Royce Denham took a call in the service corridor. He had no reason to check the pantry. Adaline was standing inside it in the dark with Nell's phone, recording. The stern. Below the second landing, there's no camera. He walks her down at 11:40, once it's dark, during the address. She goes over the rail. We don't call it in for 10 minutes. A pause. It reads as an accident. Nobody's looking at the water. They're all looking at the stage. Another pause. No, there is no body. That's the entire point of the ocean. She stood in that dark pantry, holding a recording of her own murder, and she pressed her fist to her mouth and cried so quietly that not one sound left her body. Then she checked the time. 10 hours until the boat. The Variant carried 416 people that morning. 16 delegations, 3 cabinet officials, 41 journalists, and 1 woman in a white coat who hadn't slept in 4 days and was the calmest person aboard. The day ran long by design. Champagne and photographs through the afternoon, dinner as the sun went down, the formal signing address held back for the finale. After dark, when the string lights came on and the cameras got their best shot of the water behind the stage, nobody questioned it. Ceremonies for deals this size always saved the signature for last. Walton smiled for the cameras. It was the first time she'd ever seen him smile. There she is. He took her hand in both of his in front of a wall of photographers. The architect, my daughter. Walton, you're going to make me cry. Save it, he said warmly. There'll be time for that later. Grant found her at the rail 20 minutes before the address. He looked like a man who'd already died and hadn't been informed. Addie. Hi. You look... His voice failed. You look beautiful. I know. You always hated this coat. I never hated it. You said it made me look like a lighthouse. I was joking. He put his hand on the rail beside hers, not touching. Addie, I have to tell you something.
I need you to listen
right now, before the address, before
Later,
any
I
of
promise
it.
you can tell me
I need to
everything.
say it out loud, and I need you to listen to me. Not now, please. Grant. She looked at him, and there was something in her face he had never seen before, and it stopped him where he stood. Later. I promise you. Later. You can tell me everything. Everyone asks why I didn't let him confess. She shakes her head. Because a confession in private is worthless. He'd have wept, he'd have begged, and then he'd have run straight to his father, and Walton would have been on a jet before the coffee went cold. I didn't need my husband to be sorry. She looks up. I needed him recorded. Walton reached his son at the stairs. She's suspicious. She's not. She is looking at you like a woman who has already decided something. He straightened Grant's collar with 2 fingers, the way he had straightened it his entire life. Do it during the address. Every eye on this ship goes to the stage. Father, now Grant. He patted his son's cheek once. And then you come home? At 11:38 that night, he walked up to his wife at the edge of the crowd. The captain needs you. His voice was steady. That was the worst part. He had found somewhere inside himself to put it, and his voice came out steady. There's a problem with the navigation clearance. It's below, on the stern deck. 2 minutes. The string lights had come on an hour ago. 400 people were turning toward the stage. She looked at the man she had married, and she smiled. Warm, easy, the same smile she'd given him across a policy dinner 2 years before. Of course, Grant, lead the way. He almost fell down. Her voice goes very quiet. I watched the relief move through him, and behind the relief, the horror of his own relief. A pause, and I thought, there you are. The stern deck was empty. Night had fully settled by then. The water below the rail was black and moving fast, and there was no camera on that level. Grant stopped 6 feet short of the rail. He didn't turn around. Addie? Yes? I'm sorry. His shoulders came apart. He was crying before he even faced her. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what, Grant? Don't. No. Say it. Her voice didn't rise. It went quiet, and it went hard, and it filled that entire deck. Sorry for marrying me because your father told you to? Sorry for learning how I take my coffee so you could sell it back to me as love? She stepped forward. Or sorry for walking me down here at 11:40 at night so I'd go over that rail and drown before I could sign my own name. Grant Ellison went white. How? He couldn't get it out. How do you... I was in the hallway, barefoot, outside the study. Her voice finally cracked, and she let it. I heard him tell you to get me away from my security. I heard him say the sea would take care of the rest. Addie, and then I heard you think about it. She was shaking. You paused, Grant. You stood there and you weighed me. And then you said, yes, Father. He collapsed. His knees went, and he sobbed into his own hands. He would have destroyed me. He already destroyed you. She stood over him. He did it years ago. I just didn't know I'd married the wreckage. Addie, I love you. I know. Her eyes were streaming and her voice never moved. That's the part I'll never survive. And then she reached into her coat. She took out a phone, not hers, Nell Kavanaugh's. Do you know what this is? She held it up. It's live. It has been live since I stepped onto this ship. And 400 people on the upper deck heard the sound system crackle, the music cut out, and Grant Ellison's voice come out of every speaker on that ship. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry for walking me down here at 11:40 at night so I'd go over that rail and drown before I could sign my own name? How do you... The silence that fell on that deck is the thing every survivor of that night describes first. Then she pressed play on the second recording. The stern. Below the second landing, there's no camera. She goes over the rail. It reads as an accident. No, there is no body. That's the entire point of the ocean. Royce Denham was standing 40 feet from 3 federal officials when his own voice explained how he intended to drown a woman. He ran. He got 11 steps. Walton didn't run. He stood in the center of that deck with 400 people turning to look at him, and he didn't move one muscle in his face. He was still calculating, she says. He was already writing the denial. A hysterical young woman, a doctored recording, a marriage under strain, a pause. And he'd have sold it. He'd sold worse. And then Nell Kavanaugh walked onto the stage with a cardboard box. 19 years. Her voice went out across the whole ship. I made this man's numbers beautiful for 19 years. She set the box down. These are the real ones. The debt, the forged filings, and the memo where his own attorney explains that if Adaline Marsh dies, $500 billion lands in this family's lap. The deck came apart. Walton turned and looked at her, and there was no rage in it. There was assessment. He was looking at her the way a man looks at a competitor who's just done something clever. She took the microphone. She didn't look at him at all. She looked at her husband, being lifted off the deck by 2 men in uniform. Grant. He looked up. Your father didn't lose your brother. Her voice was almost gentle, and it carried into every corner of that ship. Your father spent him. What? He gave Beckett the order that put him in that parking structure. He pointed him at a door, and he never checked what was behind it. And Beckett went because Beckett never asked questions. She let it land, and it killed him. Grant stopped breathing. 4 years, Grant. 4 years you've been trying to become a man your father sent to his death. And he let you drown in it. He fed it to you. Every single night at that table. Because a son chasing a ghost will do anything you ask him to. And Grant turned and looked at his father. Walton Ellison said nothing. That was the confession, she says. 400 people, 41 cameras, and the only man I ever met who always had an answer, her jaw tightens, said nothing at all. The sound that came out of Grant is not something this narrator will describe. The people on that deck don't describe it either. It went on for a long time. He didn't shout, he didn't struggle, but he did not go quietly either. A man like Walton Ellison doesn't fight with his hands. He fights with everything else he spent 62 years building, and he spent the walk across that deck trying to spend it. You understand my attorneys will have this overturned by morning, he said to the agent on his left, in the same flat, reasonable voice he used to order dinner. The agent didn't answer. Didn't slow down either. I have pulled men out of far smaller rooms than this one, he tried next, to no one in particular, scanning the crowd for a face he recognized, a favor he could call in. 3 federal officials who had been drinking his champagne an hour earlier looked through him like he was already gone. By the time they reached the gangway, his voice had dropped lower, and for the first time in the entire story, it was not calm. Whatever they're paying you, he said to the agent gripping his arm, I will triple it before we reach the dock. The agent's expression didn't change at all. That was the moment it finally landed. Not the handcuffs, not the charge being read to him. The silence. 62 years of never once being told no, and the world had simply stopped answering. They took him off the warrant in handcuffs. He stopped once, in front of his daughter-in-law, and spoke without raising his voice, exactly as he had every day of his life. You think this is justice?
It's simply
He
a
looked
better
at her
predator.
almost
A predator
fondly.
would have let you drown.
It isn't. It's simply a better predator. No, Walton. She didn't blink. A predator would have let you drown. And she walked away from him, up onto that stage in front of the entire world, and with her father's hand on her shoulder and her husband on his knees behind her, she signed her own name. Walton Ellison was indicted on conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation, and 19 counts of fraud. From Nell's box and a reopened 4-year-old file, prosecutors added one more charge, the one connected to a parking structure in the rain. They asked him on the stand whether he had anything to say to the woman he tried to have killed. I have one thing to say to her. He didn't look at her. He looked at the jury. She was the finest asset this family ever acquired, and my son was too small to hold her. He straightened his cuff. That's the tragedy, not the boat. That. He is serving a sentence he will not survive. 4 years, not one visitor. Nell says it without any pity at all. I've seen the log. It's empty from the first page to the last. He built a family. He spent every person in it. And when they came for him, there wasn't one soul left standing to come see him. Royce Denham took a deal and testified for 11 days. The same loyalty he'd sold Walton, sold now to save himself, because that was the only kind of loyalty that House had ever taught anyone. Nell Kavanaugh got immunity and lost the career she'd spent 19 years building. Cheapest thing I ever bought, she says. I'd pay double. The empire didn't just lose its patriarch. It lost everything he'd built it to hide. Ellison Holdings does not exist. The building sold. And Beckett's chair, the one nobody was allowed to touch, went to auction with the rest of the dining set. Nobody there knew what it was, Adaline says. It went for $240. Last of all, the son. Grant Ellison was convicted as an accomplice to conspiracy to commit murder. She went to see him once. Only once. The room was gray and it hummed. He came in thinner, in clothes that didn't fit, and put his hands flat on the table because he didn't know what else to do with them. Neither of them spoke for a long time. You came. I did. I didn't think you would. Neither did I. Addie. He couldn't look at her. I have to ask you one thing, and then I'll never ask you for anything again. Ask. Was any of it real? His voice went. For you. Was any of it, all of it? She said it simply. Every day. Every single day, Grant. It was all real for me. He closed his eyes. That's what I was afraid of, he whispered. I know. She stood. She put her chair back exactly where she found it, because she's that kind of woman. You asked me something once. Do you remember? If you did something unforgivable, would I want to know why, or would I just want it to have never happened? He was crying and he didn't wipe his face. I know why. I've known the whole time. Her voice didn't rise. He starved you your entire life, and then he sold you a plate. Then, it doesn't matter, she said it very softly. That's what I came here to tell you. Knowing why doesn't move me 1 inch. Because I stood in that hallway, and you had 2 seconds. Addie, and 2 seconds was long enough. She walked to the door. Addie, please. She stopped. She did not turn around. You said yes, she said, and she left. The Meridian Accord signed. 16 nations, $500 billion. Her name is on the first page, and it will be there long after everyone in this story is dead. She's 32 now, a house with very good locks, a father who calls every night at 9 and won't hang up until she says she's all right. She still doesn't sleep. Most nights I end up at the window around 3, barefoot. standing exactly the way I was standing in that hallway. She says it without any drama at all. And the strange part is, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm just listening for a floorboard, for a pause, for the sound of somebody deciding. People keep telling me I won. I did win. She looks away. I'd just like somebody to explain to me why winning is this quiet. And I know how lucky I am. I'm the one who heard it. Somewhere out there is a woman who's asleep right now, being loved by somebody who's already run the numbers on her. I wouldn't wish my life on her. A long pause. But I'd give her the hallway. I'd give her those 2 seconds, because 2 seconds is all I got, and it was enough. So sit with this one before you answer. He loved me. She doesn't flinch. That's the unbearable part. He genuinely loved me, and he still walked me toward that rail. Because a man spent 38 years teaching him that love was the cheapest thing he owned. So tell me in the comments, is a love that surrenders even love at all? And be honest, if you'd been standing in that hallway with your hand over your mouth, would you have run? Or would you have gone back to bed and smiled and waited? Tell me down below. I read every one. New story every week. So if this one held you to the end, hit that subscribe button, tap the like, share it with somebody who'll lose sleep over it, and turn the bell on so the next one finds you. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.